Good morning, Suidlanders. How are you? We trust that you are well. I'm leaving Washington State and should go into Idaho shortly. On my way back, really, to where this journey began. There won't be many detours between now and the return in 3 weeks' time. The flight back to South Africa on the 17th of December. But there will be some stops along the way. So this is it. This is the beginning of the journey home from the almost the furthest point west in the contiguous USA. Contiguous means the 48 states that are connected to one another. Then, of course, they have a couple more states. Alaska, which is on the continent of North America, but is not attached to the other states. Oh, I could feel the wheels slide just a teeny tiny bit there. And then the state of Hawaii, which is all the way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This video in the series Suidlanders in a Sedan across America is about the changing face of the USA. For the past 4 nights, I've stayed in a small motel owned by a white guy. And on 2 other occasions over the past 2 months and about a week, I have stayed in motels or hotels or versions of those ideas. Owned by white people. But for the rest, they've all been owned by Indians. When Andre Coetzee and I toured the USA in 2017, we came across 3 hotels owned by Indians. The Motel 6 in Oklahoma City, the horrible little motel that we stayed in Bastrop, Texas, and the other one where I got the bed bugs. Some of you may remember the story of being eaten alive by bed bugs from literally the heel of my foot up the back, exactly up the back. Oops. All the way to my head, one solid line. Well, that motel was owned by Indians. I can't remember where it was. But all of the rest, as far as we knew, were owned and certainly run by white people. And when Indians own motels, they use their own people for the most part. So if you've got whites running the motel, then you know that it's owned by whites. The gas stations in the USA, similarly, were owned from time to time, we would observe, by Indians, but very seldom, in the absolute minority. Now, I would go so far as to say that 60 to 70% of the gas stations, the petrol stations, the fuel stations are owned by Indians. I landed at Boston Logan International Airport in Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, that wasn't nice. In the northeast of the USA. And that's where I'll fly out of. In the arrivals hall, I estimated that there were about 400 people. Not the arrivals hall, what do you call it? Customs and immigration. And I'm fairly good at estimating the number of people in a room, in a place, from over 25 years of working in the live event industry. It's a very handy tool to be able to size up a space and its occupancy. Look how slowly that truck is driving with those big fat tackies of his. I wonder what speed I should be doing. I'm not looking forward to going downhill. By the looks of things, this is the top of the pass. Well, we'll just keep going. I estimated that there were 400 people in that arrivals hall, and I counted 8 white people. Let's say that I estimated very poorly, and there were only, sure, I can't say 200 because it's simply not the case, but let's say 300. And let's say that my counting was poor and that I missed some people lined up in those queues to enter the USA. And that the actual number was, say, 30. Can you imagine that only 10% of the people getting off the planes, the international flights, to enter the USA at that time, on that day, were Europeans and Americans, and South Africans and Australians and New Zealanders, to make some generalizations. Can you imagine that? Many of those people getting off those planes, standing around me, oh, I'm not looking forward to this, were very, very poor. The poorest of the poor. Indians, for example, who looked like they'd never eaten a square meal in their lives, and the clothes that they were wearing were shoddy and shabby and old and threadbare, and the leather on their shoes was coming apart. Very, very, very poor, and not only poor, woe-begone people. People who looked frankly hopeless. Coming into the USA with presumably very little to offer. Certainly not the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you might offer if you were to emigrate to the USA and you wanted to get one of those green card, those investment green cards. Certainly not the standard 10 matric or 3 years university degree that you might offer, or the apprenticeship, the highly skilled apprenticeship that you might offer if you were coming into the USA. There is just no way that those Indians were fitters and turners, boilermakers, carpenters, or welders. Not only Indians, but all black people, or some Latin Americans. That is the changing face of the USA. I haven't been to the southern border. I can't tell you exactly how bad it is. But I do know that the other day I read a report, an Excel spreadsheet with references and cross-references and you name it, using US government statistics with the quotations, the links, demonstrating that the number of illegal immigrants into the USA in recent years is greater than the populations of 39 US states. So the number of illegal immigrants into the USA, illegal alone, by the government's admission, is only less than 11 of the United States' 50 states. The changing face of the USA. This was Suidlanders in a Sedan across America.